Welcome to The Grow Show with me as your host, Joe Camerato. I am an entrepreneur who created my company, National Business Capital, from literally $0 out of my spare bedroom to over $2 billion in business loans secured for entrepreneurs nationwide. Since 2007, I have seen just about every type of business. I provide money and help entrepreneurs access capital to scale fast, but I also know that it's possible for you, as you scale, to replace yourself, to build systems, processes, and great teams of people that can live on without you so you can actually enjoy your life and your company can still grow. I will not only tell you the peaks and valleys of my story, but I will also bring on world-class entrepreneurs to tell their stories and share their lessons on their growth journeys. Welcome to The Grow Show. All right, everybody, welcome back to The Grow Show with me as your host, Joe Camerato. Have a cool guest on today, Michael Rubino, and really excited to have him on. I think this is a topic that maybe you don't think about, maybe some do, but it's about air quality, and that is Michael's focus, and he built a whole business around it, really just in improving air quality in the home, and he's become a leader in it. Michael Rubino has become the renowned leader in the indoor air quality mold and remediation space. As the founder of Home Cleanse and president of Change the Air Foundation, Michael continues to push the conversation forward for creating better indoor air quality. Michael also has become the renowned leader in the indoor air quality. He's also the council certified mold remediator by the IRCRC. Did I say that right?
Yeah, IRCRC, ACAC.
And a contributing member and sponsor and speaker for the Indoor Air Quality Association. Well, thanks for being on the show today, Michael.
Hey, thanks for having me, Joe.
It's funny, I didn't know that there was an indoor quality, air quality association, and that there's really so much focus on this. But I mean, it really is a real thing. And I say that jokingly, but also seriously. And what's funny is we've put a really cool, this big air filter connects to Alexa and in our bedroom and some in our kids' rooms. And I've noticed that my sleep has really improved since we've put it in. I don't wake up stuffy and congested. And it's been a game changer. And recently we just changed the filter for the first time. And I can't tell you how much crap we was built up around this thing. And I'm like, wow, this has been sucking this out of our bedroom. So, I was excited to have you on today because I didn't realize there was so much in the space. It's amazing that you've built a business around it and you've become a leader in it. But I guess from your perspective, why is this so important, and what are things that I think people should understand about this? And then I want to hear your story of how you got started with this, because it's got to be an interesting story.
Yeah, well, first off, Joe, you take 20,000 breaths per day. And okay. I think when we talk about health and wellness, one thing that comes to mind is if we want to be healthy, we have to worry about things that go into our body or onto our body, right? So you'll see people do a lot of research on what type of mattress to buy because they're going to be sleeping on it 8 hours a day, what sort of clothes to buy, trying to keep plastics away as much as possible and all that nature. But nobody ever thinks about the air they're breathing. And going back to that 20,000 breaths per day, you breathe more stuff than anything else you consume on the planet. And so with that being said, air quality actually should be number one on our list, and it's never on our list, right? So that's what I'm trying to change, is help people become more and more aware of it. How did I get into this? So first off, I'm a second generation restoration contractor. So my dad has been in restoration since I'm a kid, about 5 years old. And Hurricane Sandy happens as I'm in my, early 20s. And that's when I started seeing a pattern of people getting sick inside their own homes. And that was the first time for me that this light bulb went off. And I said, oh my goodness, if people can get sick in their own homes from things like mold and bacteria, that's after a major storm and it becomes, more prevalent. What about just the average family and what they're breathing in all day, 20,000 times a day, across not only this nation, but across the world? And as I started diving into the science behind all these things, it's no secret to me, but we've never been sicker than we are today. Go ahead and take out Google right now, and you'll see that 60% of the global population is dealing with at least one chronic condition. 78% of US adults are on one prescription medication, which is a 19% increase from, I think, the 3 years they checked prior to that. Statistically speaking, we are getting worse and worse. And if you're like me and you like to ask yourself questions as to why that could be, it doesn't make sense, right? Because we have advancements in medicine, we have advancements in technology. How could we be getting sicker and sicker and sicker? And I think the reason really is entrenched in the fact that one of the biggest things we overlook is the quality of air that we breathe. And if you look at how construction has transformed over the years, homes have they're built tighter and tighter today, which means
Yeah.
that you're stuck inside more than you've ever been with your own particulate. So your own dead hair and skin cells, your own bacteria, viruses, things like mold that accumulate inside of homes, all these things. And so going back to that 20,000 breaths per day, you could see it firsthand, as you mentioned, in your air purifiers, how dusty and disgusting they get over time. It's a big deal. And most people
Yeah.
aren't aware of it.
I would say too, if you own a business, you probably take about 30 to 50,000 breaths a day. So for everyone watching who's an entrepreneur, a business owner, you're definitely taking more breaths. Yeah, I mean that's really wild, and you don't think about that, and it is true with like the tight homes. Like my home has an April air system. I'm assuming that's a
Like an
good thing.
ERV?
Yeah, like it pulls in. It's called April air. I don't know if it's maybe
5100 probably.
and and it pulls like the fresh air in from the outside because it was a newer home, and I guess they did that because otherwise you just would never get any real air into the house. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
That's an
But
amazing thing.
how do you know, like, how do you know if you are living in a home that is has bad air quality? Like like is there a way to test that? Like how do you go and do that?
Well, I'm glad you asked because I helped invent a really simple and easy test using PCR technology called the dust test. And you can literally go to thedusttest.com right
Huh.
now, buy it, and order it to your house. And we're testing dust to see what's in our environment. Now, why test the dust? Because when you test the air, you're collecting typically about 75 milliliters of air. Well, think about a two-liter bottle of Pepsi right now, or a bottle of Coke right now, and think about just how many 2-liter bottles of Pepsi or Coke you'd have to fill up your entire house with to be able to really see all the information across what's going on in your air. Unfortunately, one of the things we learned from COVID is particles typically emanate from a source point and travel through the air about 3 to 6 feet from where they emanate from. So if you have a problem in the corner of your bedroom and you do an air test in the middle of the room, you're probably going to miss whatever problems you might find.
Huh.
With actually dust testing, because particles do aerosolize, settle to the floor, become part of our dust, we actually can screen our homes that way more effectively and get a good sense of what might be going on in the home. Then we can kind of dive into figuring out where it's coming from. And that's really the most efficient and cost effective way to understand what we're actually being exposed to in our living environments.
Wow, interesting. And what is it all like, because I think is it come from, like, is it mold? Like, if you're just like, oh, I don't have mold in my home, but outside of mold, if there's not like mold in your home, is there still other things? Like, what influences the air being bad in your home? Like, what are things that you have to be concerned with?
So mold, the M word, I think it's one thing that people never want to admit that they have. Unfortunately, studies are showing us EPA and HUD did a joint study called the American Healthy Home Survey, and they did it over the span of 13 years. So the first one was in 2006. 13 years later, they wrapped up in 2019. Over those 13 years, we saw 35 of the 36 different species of mold that they test for go up in prevalence, meaning unfortunately, our homes are getting moldier and moldier across the US and North America in general. And I think mold is actually one of the easiest things to identify in a home. But if I have mold in my home, then I'm going to have other problems too. So, first off, bacteria and mold are going to grow in the same conditions. So, if I've got a mold problem, I've got a bacteria problem. You don't want to have a bacteria or a mold problem in your house. But mold is a lot easier to test for with certain technologies, and they're going to grow in the same locations. Main reason is they both need water to survive. So if I've got mold in my house, then I know I've got bacteria in my house. And my concern is it getting into the HVAC system.
Yeah.
Reason being is if I've got leaking windows, for example, and I've got some mold and bacteria growing around that window as a result, those particles are going to aerosolize, get into the air, travel through. We've all learned the word air transmission, I think, from COVID, right? Things travel in the air, they become part of the dust particles already in the air. They travel much further, they circulate around the house due to building pressure. And from that point in, if you think about the HVAC system, it's constantly drawing in, conditioning it, supplying it back out. The HVAC system has what's called an evaporative coil that always condensates. It's the reason we have drip pans and drain lines that drain the water away. Well, because it always condensates, it's wet. And what do we know about mold and bacteria? They need water to survive and thrive. So if it gets to that coil, it's going to start growing inside the coil. Now it contaminates the HVAC system, and it's essentially poisoning every breath that we breathe. Doesn't matter where we're in the house at that point, because it's going to be everywhere.
Everywhere. Got it.
And that's what I see. So my background over the last 12 years since I've been doing what I'm doing, my background has been helping people who have been really sick figure out problems inside their home that are contributing to their illness, and then helping them come up with a plan to eradicate these issues and actually get back to health. And so I've been in the medicine side of this journey. Recently, I just launched a company called Home Cleanse Athletics with two-time Super Bowl champion Logan Ryan and decorated sports doctor Matthew Preventure. And what we're trying to accomplish is, we know we have the technology to help people when they're sick. How about human performance in general? You mentioned sleep, right? We want to start looking at how do we prevent illness, not just help people once they have it. And we're doing that through the power of air quality.
Wow. So, like my son is 4, he's on the nebulizer, right? He was, like 4 weeks premature. I just feel like there's more and more kids on nebulizers. Do you think that could stem back from the air quality in our home? Is that like, I feel like I've never heard of more children on, I just don't remember this growing up, like friends or anyone, family members, cousins being on nebulizers. And I just feel like I see more and more of that now. Do you think there's like a connection there, or?
Well, I'll tell you this. So when we talk about air quality, there are two subsets of populations that are the most impacted. It's going to be children and it's going to be elderly. And if we go back to the statistics we just talked about, how the problem of homes inside of North America getting worse over the past 13 years, it's just been getting worse and worse. And it's because of the building code changes and this big push for energy efficiency. Well, if air quality is getting worse and people are getting sicker, all age levels, we want to really take this a lot more seriously. Your son being on a nebulizer, I mean, you said he's about 4 now. Mm-hmm. How long have you been in this home?
Well, definitely since he's been born, but 7 years.
7 years. So The first thing we're going to do, Joe, is we're going to get you a dust test because we want to check this out and see. I mean, there is a extremely strong possibility that we might be able to find something to make improvements on to help you get, your son the relief that he's needing. Have you ever heard of pans and pandas?
No, I don't think so.
So pans and pandas is a psychiatric disorder in children that's actually been traced back to having a massive correlation to poor air quality. More and more kids today are being diagnosed with pans and pandas, and it's essentially a behavioral disorder in children that's become widely rampant, I would say, where kids are having behavioral issues in poor air quality environments that dissipate when they're not in poor air quality environments. And it's a really interesting and yet strange phenomenon. And there seems to be some sort of correlation between air quality, gut health, and then how it affects the brain. Because unfortunately, certain toxins that we have in our homes produced by both mold and bacteria in water damaged environments can be neuropsychiatric and have neurological effects as well. So that's sort of the interesting thing we're seeing in kids. Asthma has always been one of the largest. Asthma has probably been one of the things we've known over the past 20 years that has been a huge impact in kids. As a matter of fact, I was diagnosed with asthma when I grew up as a kid, and I lived in a notoriously moldy Staten Island apartment. Um, and once I moved out into the Jersey suburbs from Staten Island, I was 8 years old. All of a sudden, the inhaler is gone, and I no longer have asthma. And
Huh.
so I didn't really connect the dots until much later as I started diving into the science. Like, oh yeah, I did have asthma. I was on an inhaler, and I literally kicked it as soon as I moved to New Jersey. I mean, literally the second week living in this New Jersey single family home, moving from this, I mean, grotesque apartment. It was a totally different game changer, and I was no longer diagnosed with asthma, like a miracle, right? My doctor was shocked. And as I look at all of this and take all this information, it's like, I'm a dad. I have a kid who's 8 and I have a kid who's 5. And because of what I know, my house has tremendous air quality because, as you could imagine,
I was gonna say.
I gutted my entire house when I bought it, remediated the entire thing. It was a mess, leaking windows, leaking roof, all that was fixed. I've got new HVAC systems, the best filters money can afford to buy in these systems. And I took it really seriously, and I've been fortunate to never have had any sort of adverse health effects seen in my kids. But if you don't know, then there's no way you could ever rule those things out.
Yeah, that makes sense. You should have probably moved to Long Island. You probably would have even been that much better. I mean, Jersey and then Staten Island. I mean, you can argue which places are better. I'm just busting chops there. That's really wild. I'm definitely gonna do that test because now I'm really curious. I'm like, wow, I wonder, if that's the issue. And I've noticed in my own sleep with putting that air filter in my room, how I'm just not, I'm waking up. I'm for sure sleeping better, and I'm waking up not congested like I used to, especially in the winter comes the dry heat, all that stuff that used to really, I just thought it was normal. And that's just what happened in the wintertime with the heat. And I haven't dealt with that this whole winter, which is really cool.
Well, I want to tell you something else interesting with the correlation with the heat that you might not have thought of. So, our HVAC systems, depending on what filter you have, right? And I talked about how they get contaminated with mold and bacteria. In the wintertime, when you put the heat on, now it dries out the coil. So, if you have any mold or bacteria growing on that coil, it's going to dry it out, make it brittle, break it up into small particles. And you're going to have a lot more of these tiny, tiny, tiny particles entering your body, which then enter your bloodstream. If you look at the American Lung Association website, they'll tell you anything smaller than 10 microns in particle size, the greatest human health risk, because they're so tiny, it bypasses our self-defense mechanisms in our mucous membranes, our lungs, and it enters the bloodstream. So thinking about it from this perspective, once things start breaking apart into brittle, even tinier particles, makes it a lot more challenging for the body to actually deal with. So that's why you see our biggest time of year where people are contacting us is actually right when they start turning on into the heating season.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, got it. How do you check the coil? Like, how do you know? Like, can you check the coil in your HVAC system? Is that like an easy thing to check out?
Yeah, so the test that I like the best is called an EPA 36. You could do an EPA 36 swab of the evaporative coil. And I mean, if I were able to screen share right now, like we're on a Zoom, and show you different results, it will blow your mind. But the reality of it is, this is where I see the most problems creating the most detrimental impact to the air quality, is right through that coil itself.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to definitely check that out. So, how did you go from this, being, obviously it's clear that you're passionate about this, but how did you go from like turning it into a business? Because like, do you do still like the home restoration stuff, or is it just all air quality now, and that's the core business?
So it's pretty much all air quality, and that's the core business. We don't do any reconstruction efforts.
Okay.
Let me tell you the main reason why, from a business perspective, just because it's interesting. But I never want the scientific work that I'm doing for you to be overshadowed by the paint color on the wall. And I've been around the restoration side working for my dad long enough to know that you can do a 99% bang up job, but the color that they pick out for their walls that gets painted on their walls that's different than what they expected turns into the biggest argument you could ever imagine. It's like, well, that's the color you picked out, right? And so I never want the work we're doing scientifically to ever be overshadowed by a design choice. And that is the core of the decision that I made on making sure that we don't touch the reconstruction efforts. Because as a business owner, I know there's tons of revenue potential there to be able to do that side of things too. But the core business and the reason we exist is to make sure that people are scientifically improving their quality of air that they're breathing, and they're noticing a difference in how it displays in their health. And that is all I want to do for people. And that's the main core ask. We are nationwide. So we do this across all 50 states across the country. We have clients that have homes in other countries as well, like Canada or Mexico. And we work through the NAFTA trade agreements to get visas to go and work on those projects specifically for those clients. I mean, we have built a business that caters to individuals that are either sick and want to get better. And the reason being is because we know technologically we are one of the only companies in existence that can help them to the level that we can. And also, we're looking for people who are health enthusiasts who actually see the value in investing in improving the data that we're finding across their home. And that's the sandbox that we play in. And I told you about the Home Cleanse Athletics division with some amazing, impressive partners coming into this space. We're actually going to be working on a sports facility that's within the NFL network, where that's part of the training program, and right here in Tampa, where I live. And we're going to be proving to athletes and showing the athletic community that this isn't just about being sick. This is about improving human performance and well-being. You already mentioned sleep. Well, if I'm an athlete, I need to have good sleep because I need to recover. If I'm going to perform at my best every Sunday or every weekend or whatever that may be, I need to have my recovery and performance at top notch. I mean, my body becomes my career, and keeping that body healthy is not easy for anybody to do, let alone somebody who's got to perform at a high level. And for most athletes, they're focused on diet, they're focused on exercise, right? And they've got all kinds of crazy equipment like cold plunges and saunas and all these things that are great for detoxing and recovery. But the issue is none of them, not one of them, are focused on the quality of air they're breathing. And that's something we're bringing into the fold and showing them. We have case studies on how it improves heart rate variability. We are dumping more and more time and resources into researching just how far reaching this is, because just in the limited information we've had over the past 12 years, we see how much it improves people when they're at their worst. We know it's going to help people improve when they're at their best.
Wow. That's really wild. So then you're going to be going into their homes, and then also what this facility is going to be like the best air quality you could, basically train in, ever, so to speak.
Yeah. So this is going to be the first gym in America that's going to have hospital grade air quality.
Wow.
To be able to train. And, part of the training program isn't just obviously working out. They're also getting massages and physical therapy, and they're doing all these other things. So they're spending significant amounts of time in these facilities going, training, doing sauna work, cold plunges. The air they're breathing is extremely important. And they may do this training program for months at a time to get ready for a next upcoming season. So not only is this going to be the first gym in one of the first NFL certified gyms in North America, we're also going to have a program for them where every single one of their athletes gets a free dust test that they can then use at home to test their homes to make sure that their homes are top notch. Because it's obviously where you work out and where you're taking these massively deep breaths and training in is important. But if you're going home and spending 12 hours a day thereafter in a very toxic environment, that's not really going to help them either. So we want to complete the program by giving them the resources to give them a test as part of their membership. And that's going to be our first foray into this field. And from there, we'll look to partner up with other organizations to convert their gyms and improve air quality across different sports facilities in America.
That's exciting. That's amazing. I can't wait to see this thing, and once it's open up. Um, how have you grown your business? Did you use equity, debt, um, off of cash flow? Just curious on how you've been able to fuel your growth.
Yeah, so I'm a bootstrapper.
Nice.
So I own 100% of the company. I have never taken on equity. Uh, to be honest, I never really understood that whole side of thing. I have a lot of friends in businesses, and they have products, and before they even prove concept or generate $1 of revenue, they're sitting there raising millions of dollars. I always found that whole principle to me very interesting, to say the least. Um, I've taken on debt to grow the business in need. And I've done so very strategically, trying to utilize the resources we need and paying off the debt as quickly as possible. Never getting into a situation where you're borrowing yourself into a hole.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and I probably have done it for the past 7 years. I started in 2017. Past 7 years, about once a year, I would take on some debt to buy new equipment, purchase more, purchase the ability to deliver more services and deliver
Yeah.
those efficiently and effectively. And that's how I've done it. And so it's been, we started in 2017 and we have more than 10x our business. We're at probably
Wow.
about 25x when we first started year one, just 7 years ago.
Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. Well done. And yeah, and I've listen, also bootstrap, my business. So I completely respect that, get that. And I think, when you use, debt, the right way, you can use it as a real tool to grow and not have to give up equity. So it's awesome that you've been able to do that. And, you're using it for growth things, which is always great and smart. That's awesome. That's great. So so you started the business 7 years ago, and so I was just kind of curious. I didn't know exactly, do you just go online? You have the dusttest.com, which is cool. I'm going to check that out. But you literally so you're nationwide. So like you go into people's homes, you've like a network throughout the US that will go in your homes to do the test or to actually like install something, or like take me through the process if I reached out to you to come into to my home, because I'm curious for myself.
So it's essentially a 4-step process. Step zero is twofold. I call it step zero because if you skip and go to step one, that's okay. But I like this step, and that's why it's step zero. You do the dust test, and you also do what's called a mycotoxin test. Mycotoxin test is a test for the body, where you're looking at different toxins that mold produces. Reason being, I remember I said earlier, mold is the easiest air quality issue to detect inside of your home. And if you have a buildup of mold and you have a buildup of mold toxins in your body, we know that your home is making some sort of impact on your health or performance, right? So we start there, and we actually can correlate this stuff. So, for example, if I test your body, I might see high levels of ochratoxin A. If I test your house, I might see high levels of aspergillus. Aspergillus is a specific mold that will produce ochratoxin A. So I know if I have an abundance of ochratoxin A in your body and an abundance of aspergillus, the mold that produces that in your environment, we know that there's creating an impact. How that displays on you from a symptom perspective is going to be different for everybody. Some person might have skin issues. Some person might have brain fog. Some person might have more neurological stuff. Maybe they're more jumpy or snappy with people, more reactive with people. And then sometimes, they're dealing with gut health issues and they think it's completely disrelated. Using that information, if I know that you have this specific type of mold, then I know that it's 1,000 times higher than what it should be. I'm now going to have a pretty good idea that at that point it's already in the HVAC system. So we're going to want to check the HVAC system. We're also going to want to check some other hot spots in your home where it might have started growing from in the first place before it got into the HVAC system. And then we put together a plan as step one, which would be to go and test these different areas inside your home. This would be where someone's actually flying out to your house. We have people trained by us in different areas. So depending on where you are. Like you're in Long Island, probably somebody from our New Jersey office would just drive over to you. At
Got
that point, we're going to test your house as step one to figure out where these problems might be coming from. So step 0, we're screening your home and body. Step 1, we're doing targeting testing to figure out where this stuff might be coming from. Step 2, our team, again, also trained by us, probably coming out from New Jersey, driving over to you in Long Island. They're going to fix your whatever problems we discover in this step 1. So then step 3, we're going to now start to work on some preventative measures, right? So you already have an ERV system from April Air, so we wouldn't need to install that, but we might need to service and change the filter for you, make sure that the ducts are connected properly and they're well sealed. They're not bringing particles in. Those systems have a standard HEPA filter. If we see that that system's contaminated in that testing in step 1, we might actually build a filter box for you where that unit attaches to, so we can get a better filter trapping smaller particles like mold, like bacteria from getting into the system. We'll look at your HVAC system, probably upgrade the filter there. We might assess if you need some dehumidifiers, maybe in the summertime. You got a lot of humidity in the basement that's rising up into the house. We might want to install a dehumidifier down there. So step 3, we're kind of optimizing and tweaking the environment so that you're more future proofing the ability for mold and bacteria to grow. Step 4, we're going to guide you on a cleaning protocol to clean your house and keep your house clean. The reason we do this protocol is because if you've had mold and bacteria growing and it's in your HVAC system, well, it's constantly reproducing particles and toxins that does settle amongst your dust. We want to guide you to cleaning and getting rid of your dust so that once all these problems are fixed, you get rid of your dust. Now you truly are breathing in better quality air at that point because all the particles and toxins are fully gone now. So that's that 4-step process. And it seems overwhelming, but we're very hands-on and really help guide you through that process step by step, make it super easy for you to get the results that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's great. That's wild. I mean, who would have thought that there is this much that can go into, your air quality and how much influence it can have on, on your health. And you're right, it's pretty wild. I mean, we're breathing every day, and you don't really ever talk about this with anyone. No one really brings this stuff up. It's amazing what you're onto, and I actually can't believe that this is the first time really like diving into this, and we're really all about being healthy in my household. I mean, yes, we did buy some air filters and said, hey, this can't hurt, but didn't realize that it's much more than just buying an air filter. If you don't, it's like, great if you have an air filter but you're not getting to the source, like who really cares? So
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like we want to get to the root cause of the problems that develop inside our homes, and this process is designed to do that. And the whole point of this is to make sure, one, any symptoms we might be experiencing that we're chalking up to like, oh, I'm just getting older or I've got kids, that's why I'm so tired. We want to address and make sure that those symptoms really are there, because I find out more often than not, when we fix people's homes, they call me back and say, I'm sleeping better. I have way more energy than I ever had, because your body has to now remove all this stuff as you're inhaling it, right? It's like having an overflowing bathtub and you're just trying to put down towels without shutting off the faucet first. You're going to be putting down towels forever. Your body never gets a break from removing all these particles and toxins from your body as you're inhaling it. So if you don't get down to the root cause, you're going to continue to feel worse and worse over time. And, it's about getting that into check. Number 2 is we also want longevity, right? We want to be around longer for our kids and for our grandkids. We want to make sure that we're living our optimal lives as long as we can. And well, it's no secret, if you're breathing in poor air quality over long periods of time, you are taking time at the end of your life off, right? So we want to help people improve their longevity, improve their overall health, and help them feel their best by taking care of invisible particles that they're breathing in all day long that they've never thought of once in their life.
Good stuff. And speaking of longevity, I mean, you hit the 7-year mark in your business, which is like a really big milestone for most businesses. Like the like, the risk reduces dramatically when you can hit that 7-year mark, especially looking at things as like, as a lender, what I do in my business. It's a really big milestone. So two questions. One is like, were there any moments where you like wanted to throw the towel in, with the business, and gotten frustrated? You're like, wow, I'm screwed. This is not going to work. How am I going to overcome this? I mean, we've all gone through these moments as, entrepreneurs, and especially when you're bootstrapping a business, or any business for that matter. But just curious.
It's such a funny question. I would say probably once a year I ask myself, is this worth it? And the reason I ask myself that once a year is because every year we reach a new scale. And every
Your
year
mic just got lower.
it did. That's so weird.
Yeah,
How about that? Is that better?
it's still pretty low.
Huh.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
How
I
about
think you're
now?
good. Yep, all good. Okay.
Okay. So every year, I would say once a year, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I see what it's worth and go and sell it. And I'd say that's probably attributed to the fact that every year you reach a new scale, especially when you're in hyper growth mode. And especially when you are a knucklehead like me and you decide to take on a problem across an entire country. Yeah, you reach a new scale, things break, you have to dive in to fix it. And it sucks when that happens because you get after about 6 months of breaking into a new scale, you get so comfortable. Everything's running like a well-oiled machine. There's no problems. You could go to the beach tomorrow and you probably your phone wouldn't even ring. And then when things start to break because you bring on more people, you're training more people, you're bringing on new service units. Well, now you need customer service people trained to deal with those service units. And again, there's all these different pieces that go into a business, right? And as you break that new scale, you start dealing with problems again, and people rely on you to help solve them. And I think when I get to that point, after being in the grace period of 6 months of feeling amazing, like everything's running like a well-oiled machine, and then you got to roll your sleeves back up, you almost feel like you're starting over. And that's a me thing, right? And so I don't know that everybody else ever feels that same way, but that's probably the biggest challenge that I go through. And a year and a half ago, I brought on a CEO to replace me as CEO, and I've stepped up as chairman of the board. And that has been really instrumental for me to be able to work on the business and not have to be in the nitty gritty on singular problems. And that was what really helped me get over that hump and continue forging on. I would say now I get offers probably all day long for people to connect and let me tell you about this amazing M&A opportunity I have for you. And I tell people now, like, contact me in 5 years because
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm at the point now where I've realized there's so many other pieces of this puzzle that I want to create for people to really deliver the, total solution for people. And, I look at it from this perspective. I've got a pretty strong theory baked in some pretty strong science that this might be the new revolution, not only in medicine, because if we actually can show all the different ways that air quality helps with medicine, right? Because right now people take pills for things that they're not solving the root cause for. If this is the root cause for all these things, the way I believe it, this is going to transform, health and wellness and really push us into the direction of personalized medicine, which is where I think things need to go. I could be wrong, but if I'm right, having all those pieces in place for people to be able to give them the total solution, I think that's something from a legacy perspective that I have a real good shot at helping civilizations long after I'm gone. And so being in that position, it's really hard for me to want to throw in the towel until I've got this company built on such a solid foundation with all these pieces in place where I feel like if I hand it to somebody, a big VC firm that buys it like BlackRock or something, right? Then I know that it's there and it's going in the right path and it doesn't need me anymore. And that's when I think I'll be comfortable.
Nice. Oh, well said. Really good stuff. Well, it's awesome what you're doing. It's amazing what you've built in 7 years. And it seems like you're having a good time while you're doing it. You're also helping people be healthier and live better lives. So I think that's always amazing. I definitely learned some stuff today, and I will be checking out some stuff in my home's air quality probably as soon as I get home tonight. So thank you for that, Michael. And as we wrap up here, where can folks find you and really learn more?
Yeah. So first off, if you're into social media, just search for me, Michael Rubino. You will find me on Instagram, TikTok, all the places. And if you want to learn more about our company and what we're doing, and interested in maybe checking out your air quality, I would go to homecleanse.com. That's the nice central spot. People can consult with me one-on-one. If you want to just dive a little deeper, and you can find my website, my personal website, on homecleanse.com as you play around there to learn more.
Awesome. And what's one growth tip that you would share, with fellow, business owners and entrepreneurs watching the show today?
All right. So the best growth tip that I think I could share is there are three major departments: your marketing department, your service department or production, whatever you are producing, and your sales department. And you have to realize that it is like an elevator. As soon as you boost one up to a new level, you got to start working on the other two. And it's not so much like a seesaw as it is like an escalator, because you really got to kind of position one after the next, after the next, after the next. And you can never really take your eye off the ball, because if one of those departments crashes, all three of them crash. So it's really like a stable triangle. You have to build stability in each of those regions. So I would tell you that, go from one to the next, poke around, pay attention to the KPIs, and always look to see how you can improve them. And when you get something that works, strengthen it and forget all the other crazy ideas that you have, and just focus on pushing that one up until it's got solid ground. So hopefully that helps some people.
Yeah, no, well said. I think, if you own a business, you're a professional juggler and balancer. And I think it's one giant balancing act. And it's always about trying to keep things as, nothing's ever perfectly balanced, but the better you can get at, I think keeping that balance, the more you can really grow and scale, and especially efficiently. So yeah, really well said. I think that's super, super important and really great advice. So thanks for that growth tip. And thanks again for being on the show, and, appreciate all said today.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.